Hello, everyone. This is Mike Mulroney. Welcome back to the Talk of Louisville.
Hello, I'm Kellye Duckworth.
How was your weekend?
It was good. My Monday's been a little rocky so far. We had a rough night. Our
Yeah.
power went out.
I know.
You jinxed me.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know, we live next door to each other, and my power went out. I sent her a text. She goes, "No, we're good. Come on over." And next thing you know, now mine's out. So
Then I lost mine.
I don't know if a squirrel hit a transformer. God bless the squirrel, I guess. Poor guy. He got fried last night.
Yeah, well, excuse my appearance today because it's been a long night.
Yeah. And then we got a big day.
We do. We have a busy day. But today is our grand opening. Well, I guess I should say soft opening. Shirley's Deals in Brandenburg.
Why do we call it a soft opening?
Because we're still adjusting and tweaking
it
stuff.
It keeps the trolls from yelling at us if something isn't perfectly. So we tell everybody we're in a soft opening when we do
a big one, just for reference, is that we only had one register as of 10 o'clock this morning. Luckily, Kinsey ran a second one down there at 11 because the line was all the way to the door.
Weren't expecting that.
No, not at all.
She had about over 14,000 people watch her videos she did last night, which is pretty incredible. So
so for a small town in Brandenburg, it looks like it's going to go over well.
We love you, Brandenburg. It's going to be good. So real quick, our sponsor today, Right Way Hauling. Give Marvin and his team a call. This week is the last week you have to get on his calendar and have 10% donated back to Shirley's Way. So the month of February, everything Marvin does, not just if you mention Shirley's Way, but all of his jobs, he's donating 10% for the month of February. He is committing, so Right Way Hauling, if you need anything done, he is committing to $100,000 this year back to the community, which is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, so hats off to Marvin and his team, Right Way Hauling. They're pretty amazing people. So, yeah, call today, call this week, get on the list for February. Is February the end of this week? Or the end of February?
Yeah. 28th.
Is it?
Yeah.
Friday.
Wow, man, it catches up. It's almost Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Not ready for that one.
Slow down.
We have a special guest here today, Miss Emily Kicklighter. How you doing, Miss Emily?
I'm doing so great. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kellye. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. Somebody tagged me as we were talking about in a post that your husband shared about some things that you all have for cancer treatments and some new stuff that y'all would like to highlight. But first of all, you are a cancer survivor. Is that correct?
Yeah. I often use the term cancer thriver.
There you go.
Because I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. It was a de novo diagnosis, which just means right out the gate. And so as stage 4, that's a terminal. I feel like I should get in on the mic. Terminal.
That's the last number, yeah.
That's the last one. And it's incurable. So they don't I don't get to ring bells, which is such a shame. I ring my own bells.
Yeah, for sure. I can tell your personality. I bet you're.
I know.
I got a lot of bells.
I can see you can have a lot of fun with most things.
But because of the diagnosis being those things, they don't often use the term survivor. They'll say, I just prefer thriver because I feel like I'm thriving with.
Yeah, absolutely. Your energy is more than my energy and Kellye's.
I know.
So obviously you're doing something right.
Well, and I told Kellye last night we had a cat wake us up at 4. My son, who's 2, peed the bed at 5. Then we had the alarm go off, right around 7. So I don't really think we fell back asleep. So I had some real coffee this morning, which is where that energy. Worked. Yeah, I don't usually drink it, and I'm a little bit like, oh, I just bumped right out of this chair.
That's hilarious. So, 2-year-old, you potty training it too, or?
Oh yeah, he's good. Well,
Kellye's got one doing that right now. She's almost 3 though. Next week, right?
Yeah.
8th.
Yeah, I guess. Oh my gosh, week and a half, I guess.
Yeah.
He's totally good during the day, but it's just those overnights. We just took the pull-up away, so. We have the pad under.
If she's not like completely naked, she doesn't go to the potty.
Oh yeah.
She's like, if I have anything on, I'm just gonna pee in it. So I think that's been the hardest part of parenthood so far.
I'm getting close to that age again one day. I probably way I'll be in about 10 years. Just whatever I have, I'll soil it. I guess that's what you go for full circle in life as a baby, and then when you get older, I guess you start doing it again. So.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about being a cancer thriver. So what I saw in your husband's post was some things that you all have uncovered through, I guess, the Radical Remission Project. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what is that?
So the Radical Remission Project was started by Dr. Kellye Turner, who wrote 2 best-selling books called Radical Remission and Radical Hope. She is a PhD cancer researcher who got her undergraduate degree from Harvard. La ti da.
Kelly's are so smart.
She's pretty smart.
I barely got out of college, much less going to Harvard.
Well, then she went to Berkeley in California.
Even different. Yeah, even more,
yeah, another big one.
Yeah.
And she was researching at the time, and she kept noticing in the medical journals where it would say female, 42, metastatic breast cancer, spontaneous remission. And that would be like the end of it in the book. And she went to her professors and she said, she saw quite a few of them. She said, has nobody asked these people what they did? And they were like, oh, no.
You would think they would track something like that.
That's where, my biggest qualm with conventional or allopathic medicine comes from, is because it's purported to be based on this data. Everything is a flow chart based on statistical data. But this data is missing a big chunk, which are people oftentimes who, for whatever reason, have chosen not to go the conventional path, or they've been fired by their oncologist for not doing the standard of care, or they've integrated and not told their doctor everything they're doing. So there's a big data set that's missing in oncology care. And it's my mission to bring the Radical Remission Project to people, because it does not at all try to discourage people from doing anything that their doctor says. It wants to support conventional care with adjunctive practices, care, things that people can do to feel empowered on their journey. But also, I always like to say it's the serenity prayer, because it really does start to define the line of what you have control over and what you don't. And I feel like a diagnosis of cancer can be so traumatic and so disempowering that this work actually gives people tools to bolster you back into like a normal space where you're like, oh, well, I have steps. I have an action plan. I have things I can do beyond what the doctors are telling me or beyond what the doctors are prescribing, that I can actually sink my teeth into and work hard and, try to get things done.
Yeah, it's first of all, I meant to say this. Kellye and I and Emily, we are not doctors. I'm not smart enough to do a lot of research, but we're giving you information that may help you with your journey. So please, if you hear anything that we talk about today, research it, talk to your doctor, and make sure that it's the right path for you. Do not take our advice. Go do your own research. Just like to throw that disclaimer out there.
Amen.
But the Radical Remission Project, is that for all cancers? Is it research in is it techniques or things that you can make changes in your life that would help you beat cancer or help you from getting it?
Well, okay, so yes, and yes, and
Yes,
yes.
yes,
I think the
yes.
answers are yes, yes,
in
and yes.
there.
So Dr. Kellye Turner, she went to, I think she got a grant from the American Cancer Society. It may have been association, I can't recall. But she did for her dissertation at Berkeley. She got a grant, traveled the world over the course of 2 years. She traveled to 10 countries and interviewed 1,500 people who had either had cases of radical remission, which she defined. She didn't want to call it spontaneous because she said, I'm willing to bet that these people did some things. And it wasn't just, magic, or, like, oh, all of a sudden I don't have cancer anymore.
I know several people that they're still taking their standard treatments, but they're also doing other things. But like you said, I don't think they always tell the doctor, because the doctor could cut your treatments off if they know that you're taking THC or what's the one in Florida that people have taken?
Ivermectin, maybe?
Well,
No.
that's some, but no, I'll think of it in a minute. It's an oil that people have claiming that this oil is Rick Simpson oil. Have you ever heard of that?
No,
I don't know.
I have heard of that.
Yeah,
I feel like I don't know what it is though. I keep seeing it referenced as
right.
far as like parasitic stuff. I think has to
Probably
do
so.
with
I'm not
parasites.
sure, but anyway. So sorry. Go ahead. So, but yeah, I
But
know that people do their own little stuff, but the doctors can't track it because they think conventional treatment fixed it or didn't fix it. Yet they're doing other things on the side. So
exactly, which is where I think the data set is flawed. But that's my own personal opinion. That's not coming from the Radical Remission Project.
right.
But the Radical Remission Project is based upon 10 healing factors, which were the common denominators that Dr. Kellye collated from her data of interviewing 1,500 people. And again, she defined it at a radical remission as someone who had beat cancer against all odds. So it was a late stage diagnosis that they either did not use conventional treatment at all, or they came to the end of what they had to offer conventional treatment wise, and it didn't work. And so they were like, sorry,
Now, what
send them home
next?
on hospice, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the 10 healing factors, only 3 of them are physical, and those are diet, exercise, herbs, and supplements. Herbs and supplements is definitely the only one of the 10 healing factors that you do have to do under the guidance of a professional. So you shouldn't be hodgepodging your own little supplement plan at home, or, ordering things online or watching a YouTube video. That's not what we advocate for. We are really about education. We're really about standing with science and looking at the research. So the other 7 factors are all mental, spiritual, and emotional. So you have deepening your spirituality, which should probably come to not be surprising to anyone. We have following your intuition, which is really a difficult one to dig into. Feeling empowered on your health journey, which is quite a struggle when you're being told, you have this terminal illness or you have late stage disease and there's nothing they can do. Releasing suppressed emotions, increasing positive emotions, embracing the support of your community, which I love. Shirley's Way is doing that. And I embraced that support. So thank you early on last year, because it's rough. It's an expensive
It really
thing.
Yeah.
And then the last one is finding a strong reason for living. And so the Radical Remission Project, Dr. Kellye Turner kind of created what is called a multimodal intervention. So it's a guide and a presentation. Multimodal just means there's like a slideshow and there's writing exercises and there's storytelling, and it engages people on different levels and different modalities. And she digs in, or, we too, as professionals who have trained to facilitate these, we dig into each of those 10 factors. We have writing exercises around it. We have a healing story around it. So you get the story of a stage 4 thriver like myself, who beat it against all odds and is now showing no evidence of disease. And oftentimes, I think for the research and for the purposes of being a guest on their podcast, you do have to have no evidence of active disease or be stable for over 2 or 3 years now.
Really?
Since I'm only at my year mark, I'm a baby, but I also I think that navigating cancer care is incredibly multifaceted and bio-individual. So, meaning you got to hit it from every side, right? All these mental, spiritual, and emotional things factor into your ultimate health and your body's intrinsic ability to heal. But beyond that, it is my body is not your body is not her body, and the doctors are treating you from a protocol, right? That is statistically probable. So I watched really early on in my care how we were getting empirical data, meaning like straight information from my own labs and how my body was reacting to medications. And the doctors were still very reticent to believe that it was the medication that lined up with it time-wise, because that was statistically improbable.
Did you tell your doctors you were going down? So, from what I gather, what you just said, they told you there was nothing else they could do, and that's when you started going down this other path. Is that what happened?
Kind of. So
you had done chemo and
no, I've
you
never
didn't do it.
had surgery. I've never had
Okay.
chemo. Never had
Really?
radiation.
Wow.
Really. So de novo diagnoses are right out from the start. It had already metastasized. When we're doing surgery on people and people are getting chemo and radiation, it is to prevent it from metastasizing.
Okay.
But I was already metastatic. So that standard of care is sort of thrown out the window.
They won't even go down it, I guess.
Yeah. Forgive me. I am speaking from the perspective of hormone positive breast cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a multifaceted disease. Not only is hormone positive breast cancer different in every bio individual, then you have the factor of hundreds of other different kinds of cancer.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different types of breast cancer even. So that being said, I do have a dear new friend to me who just got a diagnosis of triple positive, and she has had chemo. I don't believe they do surgery, but it really depends on the diagnosis, depending on what the standard of care is. So they have new targeted therapies. It's a combination. One's called an aromatase inhibitor, and one's called a CDK4/6 inhibitor. They are the standard of care. When I was diagnosed, I was told you will be on these medications for the rest of your life. It was a hard pill to swallow, pun intended, because they were pills. And they call the CDK4/6 inhibitors chemo pills sometimes because they have similar side effects. But I did take them for 3 weeks, and I did have a very adverse reaction. So they took me off of them immediately. I had to recover from them for months where I wasn't able to do any supplements or wasn't able to even do integrated care physically so much, or at least with the diet or with the supplements and herbs. But I was able to bolster my immune system with all the other 9 factors, right, of radical remission. And for me, that was evidence early on that these are just as important. Conventional medicine and sort of this, I don't know, materialist paradigm that we live in is very much like, I'm going to look at your physical body, I'm going to treat the symptoms, I'm just going to focus on this. There's nothing else to consider. But we all know that we are mind, body, and spirit. And I had been lucky enough that, my life prior to my diagnosis, I had just an incredible wealth of knowledge from different life experiences. I started in theater. I got to work with incredibly diverse groups of people in this forum of like storytelling and engaging with people and having these beautiful collaborations that I was able to build. And I was an apprentice here at Actors Theater of Louisville, moved to New York, lived there for 6 years. While I was studying French cinema in France, I actually realized I was more homesick for my yoga studio in Brooklyn than I was for my theater company in Manhattan. So I decided when I came back to train to teach yoga, it had become a really big part of my life because I actually had recurrent debilitating back pain from the time I was 16 until I was 26. And when I discovered yoga, I discovered it was really helping my back pain, which, doctors had already told me you need to stretch those hamstrings and you need to strengthen your core. But then when my back went out again, after I had already done all of these physical elements, I was so confused. I was like, how is my back out again? We were just talking about pain. And I discovered the work of a man named Dr. John Sarno. He's written numerous books. One is called Healing Back Pain, The Mind-Body Connection. And it was through reading his work and understanding what they call psychoneuroimmunology, or how your thoughts and mind affect not only your immune system, but your circulatory system, your nervous system, right? And pain that we feel in our bodies is actually coming from nerves, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
Well, his theory was called tension myositis syndrome. And he basically was looking at, why are we having so many problems with like recurrent, debilitating, chronic back pain here in the States? And we're a first world country. We have all of our basic needs met. But then, someone in a country who has less needs met, they never have any back pain. And so he started to look at the psychology of repressed emotions. And he thought, if we as a culture or community are saying to young children, for instance, oh, stop crying, come on, you don't need to be acting like that, or whatever. Not that I heard that, Mom. No, I'm just kidding.
We've all heard it.
Not that I've
said
said, not that I've said that. No,
Yeah.
I try to be cognizant of it, because I think what ends up happening and what he postulates is that our brains are very complex. And there's so much going on under the surface that we don't even know and realize, because that's what subconscious or unconscious means, right? It's underneath what you know, And so if you have an emotion that you don't even clock during the day, somebody ticks you off, something they say is offensive, and then suddenly you get in your feelings about it but you go, oh, that's dumb. I shouldn't feel that way. I shouldn't feel that way. That person is a gem. That person is a really good human. I'm not mad at them. It's like but I'm saying all this in slow-mo, but in reality, it happens in a split second, and you do not know in your conscious mind that you were ticked off. You do not know in your conscious mind that you were scared. You do not know that you began to have anxiety about something. It's all underneath the surface. And so these emotions, because they have not had a full life physiologically, the brain does this little parlor trick where it deprives oxygen from nerve cells. This doctor was at NYU for years. I healed recurrent, debilitating back pain. I was diagnosed with sciatica. I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disorder. I was told I came from a family of bad backs. But I think, more accurately, I came from a family of caretakers. I came from a family of people pleasers. I came from a family of people who might not want to consciously admit the undercurrent of emotion that lives underneath our conscious mind, because we want to be good people, right? We want to be good. And so when I discovered that and I started journaling and writing and digging in and meditating as to when I did have back pain, it would go away immediately.
Sounds to me like, if you think about with everything you just said, our aches and illnesses and pains, a lot of it is caused by mental stress.
Oh yeah,
Stress on the body, stress, everything, stress that you don't even know you have. And now, instead of treating the stress, we treat it with medication instantly.
Yeah.
They're instantly throw medicine at you, when I think a lot of times, even if somebody's overweight, a lot of times you can insult the patient but say, hey, you need to lose weight, and it upsets the patient, so they can't even say that anymore sometimes. But it sounds like to me our doctors need to start being a little more firm and honest with people about what might be causing their pain or their stress, and might help a little bit. I don't know.
For sure,
But
yeah.
they instantly go straight to a pill in most
Oh, yeah.
cases.
Well, I
Yeah.
thought something she said before we got started. She threw out all of her Shirley's Way T-shirts that said "Cancer sucks" because it's such a negative.
Stressful.
Yeah, and she's like, if you
Never thought about
constantly,
that.
I know.
I was going to give you one, but I guess
I
I
know.
won't now.
My dad,
Well, she
my
was
dad
like,
did a plumbing job
sorry.
for y'all right when I got diagnosed. Literally, like the week I got diagnosed, he was plumbing for you. And
Who's your dad?
Gary Heiberger,
Oh, okay.
Aggie and Gary.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's funny.
But if you think about it, if you constantly are seeing cancer sucks, cancer's horrible,
We need
cancer's
to come up with a more polite word,
I
I
know.
guess.
We need cancer
not even
thriver on a
polite.
T-shirt.
Yeah, just like thrive and survive or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Something
I only
optimistic.
listen. I threw them out because I don't want cancer to suck for me
Mhm.
or for anybody. And that's so early on in my diagnosis, I had to take off work. We have 2 toddlers, right? My husband took off. We were just financially in dire straits.
Mhm.
So I will say, beyond any cancer sucking paraphernalia, Shirley's Way
Yes,
is
Shirley's Way.
such an incredible asset to our community. I am so grateful for the help we got, for the help that you provide our community. I mean, it is huge. We're just so privileged and lucky to have you and your story and the way that you were driven to help people with this. But it, there's we need that support in the beginning. We need to give people fish, right? But I do believe that the Radical Remission Project is teaching people to fish, teaching people how to live with this diagnosis. And we don't have any claims about it being prescriptive or it's going to cure your cancer. I tell my story. It's my own personal story. There may be other people who have done the 10 healing factors and they've gone to a retreat and and then it doesn't work for them. We don't know. Well, we know we don't know, right? But it stands to reason that if we know cancer is an incredibly multifaceted disease with so many elements that factor into its pathology or the way it is occurring in the body, then we have to be able to tackle it with a multifaceted approach. Like hitting it from one angle is never going to. I always say, I hate to break it to you all, but there will never be a cure for cancer because cure is singular and cancer is not.
Well, I think the cure is going to be you're on medication the rest of your life, and oh, by the way, it's going to cost you $1 million to survive it, is probably what it's going to be, because they make a lot of money off of prescription drugs,
Oh,
unfortunately.
don't get me started, Mike. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anybody's doing anything malicious, so I've got some people that
No.
get mad at me when I say that, but it's true. I mean, these companies make tons of money off medication, so why would they cure it if they can treat it and keep it at bay for the rest of your life?
I have 2 stories about that. When I went to my last PET scan in November, which I had great results with, and I never went back on those targeted treatments. I did go to a next line of what's called like an estrogen inhibitor. So I do integrate care, and I believe strongly in working with my oncologist to piece together what I believe is the best treatment for my body. And I encourage everyone to do that for themselves. I do not believe that what I did will help anybody else on their journey specifically. You know what I mean? Broad strokes, yes, maybe I can teach people a thing or two about how to approach this. But that being said, the nurse who gave me the IV for my PET scan said, she was telling me, she shared a story, beautiful story about her husband passing from cancer. She said, I know I shouldn't say this, but if they found a cure tomorrow, we would never know it. Our entire economy would collapse. And there is truth in that. We have to
I think that's
understand.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's monetized, but that's capitalism in a nutshell, right? Um, it's monetized. It can be a bit myopic. They're short sighted. They're siloed in education. So they're just learning from the people who came before them, who learned a certain theory about cancer that we now know to be not correct, right? It is a foundation that's built upon investment and pharmaceutical investment. So the data, again, those data sets, it's really expensive to do research. And who has the money to do it? The pharmaceutical companies. And we look at, like, for instance, one time I had to come sort of toe to toe with my oncologist in a very respectful way. And I have to say, I shopped. You were talking about how I told my oncologist I was going to do integrated or whatever. I shopped. I went to 3. And finally, she was the one who I felt was the most positive.
3 oncologists.
Excuse me. Yes. After my diagnosis, the first 2 I interviewed patted me on the knee and acted like it was end of days and I needed to get my affairs in order. Yeah. And the third one, I walked into her office and she said, your stage 4 is not the stage 4 you're reading stats on. And I know I probably looked shocked. And she said, that is research and data from people who have had an instance of breast cancer, perhaps at my age, right? 40. And then they have surgery, they have chemo, they have radiation, they ring the bell, they're in remission for 10 years, and then they have a recurrence and it's come back and it's stage 4 because it is resistant to treatment. She said, we don't know how yours is going to act to treatment. Well, I think I credit both her knowledge base and my approach that really, went at it in a variety of different ways. I'm writing a book called The Whole Elephant, an integrated approach to healing. And I also, that's the name of my coaching business under which I do the radical remission workshops. But the idea was she was open to me doing integrated things, but I definitely had to become the CEO of my own health, in that she was making recommendations that I go on the next line of this drug that had really been harmful to my liver. And I told her I didn't want to go on that. And she said, the research says people who only, do these natural treatments or whatever, they don't live as long. And I was like, but I'm not those people, first of all, and I'm not the person who's saying I don't want any conventional care. I'm going,
But everybody else told you there wasn't really nothing they could do. Isn't that correct, though? And that reason why you started heading down this path?
I mean, I don't think it was, they didn't say there was nothing they could do.
Okay.
They definitely said, look, we have these targeted therapies, these drugs, and they are doing wonders for people with metastatic breast cancer. Women are living 5, 10 years. They have really bad side effects for a lot of people, but some people don't have any side effects.
And you chose to not go down that path?
I did. I was on it for 3 weeks, and it really
That's right.
it
Okay,
really
that
hurt
affected
me.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the one you was talking about. Yeah, they
Yeah.
put my mom on a handful of pills every day, and she couldn't take it. It was coming out of her skin. She was breaking out everywhere.
Yeah.
She looked like a leper. She had sores everywhere, and she just couldn't take the medication.
Yeah.
You're basically poisoning yourself with this medicine.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it is, like many medicines, I do think it depends on dose. What determines medicine from poison is just dosage,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the idea, it kind of comes from, I think we have a little bit of a paradigm here, like a structure where we are treating cancer as something we have to kill. We have to get rid of it. We have to kill it. We have to cut it out. We have to radiate it. We have to, kill it with chemo.
I like that. But
I
that didn't work,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
What we resist persists.
yeah.
Okay, so if I believe that cancer is a symptom, and the disease is actually underlying causes. Like I say, multifaceted. We're not talking about an underlying cause, right? We're talking about tons of things: environmental, genetic, uh, lifestyle. So many factors. So if you're just cutting the cancer out, but the terrain in which the cancer grew remains the same, that cancer ain't going anywhere.
And your habits stay the same.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and you've obviously done a lot of research. So, how does your diet play into that? Because I know you said that was one part of it.
Yeah. So early on, the thing about radical remission that she found, which is beautiful and really cool, is that there was no one diet. People did tons of different diets. So that again is going to be sort of a person's own body and choice, and being observant and sort of doing this little bob and weave action of like, I notice when I eat this, it doesn't make me feel so good. What she did discover is people can start to reduce or completely eliminate sweets, meats, and wheats.
Ouch.
I know.
That's a hard one.
Okay.
Ouch.
Now, I'm a foodie. I don't know how well you know my mom. I think your wife and she work together.
Probably
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So, my mom, we're foodies, okay?
Yeah.
We love
Yeah.
food. Love food. All foods. I mean, I've never been picky a day in my life. I have
Me either.
never taken anything
Like
off my
anything but
plate.
peas.
Anything but eggs over here.
Y'all have things.
Yeah,
I got it
That's
all.
it.
I love it all.
I don't
I
like
didn't
peas.
even have anything but.
Should have worn my I hate peas
I
shirt
know.
here today.
I had throw it on, give me some more, or whatever. And so I'm a big eater, and what I discovered was, those foods that I cut out, I really do not miss them, because I have so much more energy. I feel so amazing.
Well,
I've
your
dropped.
coffee. Did you cut coffee out
I
because of this or just?
No, there's actually studies, interestingly, with my genetic. So I had my genome, the nutrition genome done, and I actually have what's called a single nucleotide protein. I think, no, wait, single nucleotide protein might be the end of it.
How do I come up with these words?
Yeah, it's a SNP is what they call it for short, and it's a variant on a certain gene, right? And I have quite a few that a lot of people with cancer happen to also have, or they may play a factor in my body's ability to detoxify from things or to process different things. And so one of my SNPs is like, stay away from coffee, girl. The other SNP's like, drinking coffee will prevent you from getting breast cancer.
Isn't that crazy? The differences on research and things like
Well, and the beauty, so the whole thing about genetics too is epigenetics. Epigenetics is the fact and science around we can flip these switches on and off, y'all. We can change how our genes are expressing with our lifestyle choices. So you are not stuck in some boat just because you have some mutation or some variant of a gene. You can affect change in your body and still live healthily around that variant just by making good choices.
I heard somebody say it's Dana White. He's the CEO of the MMA and all that stuff fighting.
Mm-hmm.
He changed his entire life around because he had his gene. Can you get your genes mapped or something like that?
Yeah.
And he talked to this guy that does that and estimates people's average age for insurance companies. And he had this guy do this and said, at your current rate, you'll live another 5 years.
Whew.
I know. Isn't that eye-opening?
I've heard something
If
like
you
that.
can take blood and map all that stuff out and tell you, and somebody can tell you how many more years you have left,
Yeah, it's scary.
it's
Okay.
scary, but it's eye-opening as well. But
I'm going to pause you there
yeah,
because I will say when I first started going to interview these oncologists, there was, I think the statistics that you would read online say metastatic breast cancer has like a 20% survival rate at 5 years. And so that's really hard to read when you're 42 and you have 2 toddlers at home.
yeah.
And one of the doctors we had seen came to my husband, or, we were sitting in the office and she said, "Do you want me to go over numbers?" And I thought,
Financial numbers. What
that
are
is
you going to
that's
charge
where
me?
my mind went
I
to,
know.
right? I was like, "Oh,
Are you going to
I don't want
bankrupt
to
me
hear."
today?
Right? That's what I didn't want to hear. And my husband stopped and said, "No, thank you." And I looked at him. He was really firm and almost offended. And I was like, "Okay." And then it occurred to me that she was talking about
Your life expectancy.
prognosis, right? She was talking about statistics, life expectancy. And when we walked out of that office, my husband grabbed me by the shoulders and he looked me directly in the eye and he said, "Nobody can tell you when you're going to die." And I believe it. I believe it. I think that we can take all of the information as data points. We can look at everything we're given. But y'all know we're not pulling the strings here, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Well, yeah, I think he was pointing out that these insurance companies do this before they determine if you're eligible for
right.
life insurance because they want to see how long you're going to live and how much money they're going to collect from
Ooh,
you in premiums. It's all
don't.
kind of a dirty thing, really, is what he was starting with that. So you're a thriver, which is pretty awesome. When you got involved in this radical remission project, obviously, are you teaching this in seminars now? Is that what you're
Yeah,
doing? You got
yeah.
a
It's
website for that information?
basically seminars. Yeah. My website is just my name.org. So it's just www.emilykicklighter.org.
Her name's on
I
the
was gonna say
screen.
it's an
Yeah, I
awesome
think it's up
last name.
there.
Yeah.
I know. I upgraded when I got married. I was like, oh, I told my husband I was going to marry him when he was 11.
Oh,
I was
love
like, I'm
that.
going to marry you, kid.
Yeah.
I was a little older than that.
That's
I had to wait for him to ripen. But I did want to add, I didn't finish the diet thing, cutting out or eliminating meats, sweets, and wheats, increasing fruits and veggies, obviously. We all know that. And then also increasing leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables. So
I know things have changed over the years, and what you just said makes sense. But back 50 years ago, cancer wasn't a thing because people farmed their own food. They would butcher their own cows, and I really feel like things are being put in our food system now that is kind of causing the cancer to flare up in people. Because when you said the doctor went to several countries, I wonder what those countries' cancer diagnosis numbers.
They don't have a lot of chickens with
Yeah.
preservatives all in them, probably.
For sure. So I've done a lot of research on this. I really love this angle because one of my passions is regenerative farming. And yes, glyphosate was only the main ingredient in Roundup that we know
And
causes
nobody knows
cancer.
what that is. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy because they started using it en masse in our food systems in the 90s, right?
And it
So
kills weeds, but yet they're putting it in our food.
it kills everything in the soil. It is an antibiotic. It actually kills all the microbiome. So here's the thing. Cancer is a disease of the mitochondria. Okay, y'all remember in physics or not physics, chemistry, biology, that's it.
Yep.
The little squiggly lines in the cell. Well, in the diagram of the cell, there's 2 of them, right? I always grew up thinking we had 2 mitochondria in every cell.
I didn't know even what that is.
It's like the brain of the
I
cell.
didn't do well.
It's the powerhouse.
Yeah, the powerhouse of the
Look
cell.
at you over
That's
there.
the fill in the
I was
blank.
good at science,
powerhouse,
just not
right?
math.
So it converts, it is our metabolism, right? It converts energy, or it spends and powers our body with energy from our food, from sunlight, and from water. Okay. The mitochondria has its own DNA. Its own DNA. It's mDNA, right? And it is it's a descendant of bacteria. So we actually have this living bacteria that is in symbiosis with our basic functioning of being a human being. and we're eating foods that have been treated with antibiotics. And they're not only spraying glyphosate on the crops when they're growing to keep pests off of them, they're spraying them after they harvest them to prevent them from molding, because of course it's a fungicide as well. It kills everything on this micro layer, right? So
So it's killing the good bacteria.
yes,
I was
it's
going to say,
killing the good bacteria.
don't we
It's
have to have
killing.
some sort of bacteria in our bodies to keep the balance? I don't know a lot about it. We need to get you come back one day and really talk about this stuff because it's really intriguing.
Need a
to me.
whiteboard and just
Start drawing it out.
Well, and here's the thing is like as an educator, it felt like, this is like I love this stuff. I love to just dig in and read and learn more and more. But in education, we are all, it's like you're on a track, right? You choose your major, you learn from the people who have gone down that road before, and you're learning that information. And very rarely is there this multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary connection and understanding that the people in ecology are not necessarily talking to the people in the chemistry department, that are not necessarily talking to the people in health and medicine, or in the arts, or in literature, or in history. And all of these things make us what we are, right? And all of these things can be attributed to either health or disease in a micro and on a macro level. But yes, what you're referring to is our microbiome, and we're like, I don't know the stat on this, but if you look it up, the percentage of what our whole body is that is actually human is very small. We're actually so many little microorganisms kind of working in cahoots to like animate and be alive and human. So what I'll say about mitochondria is, sort of wrap that little unit up, is we are processing sunlight, which is the ultimate energy, right? And being alive by our mitochondria doing this through our food, right? But if a crop is sprayed with this glyphosate or some pesticide during its inception, right? I mean, as it's planted, the seed is already soaked in this stuff, right? And then they're spraying it on it multiple times, and then they're spraying it on it when they harvest it. When you are dealing with a seed that has grown under these conditions, it has not had to develop enzymes or micronutrients to fight off fungi and bad bacteria. It hasn't had to develop that because it's not fighting against anything. It's the definition of this little snowflake of a
Given an
seed.
easy life, yeah.
Right? It's been too easy. It hasn't had to build up those things that we used to be eating all the time, and that used to fuel us and also help us fight off bacteria and fungi and all these things that we encounter on a regular basis. But we're not getting that in our own microbiome.
I've always said that I grew up in a generation where our immune system should be a little stronger because we've drank out of garden hoses. We've played in the dirt and didn't wash our hands and ate without. We were infecting ourselves to get our bodies to fight